Let me just say that. TVs having a TV.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
I can't say so.
The last time you were in this seat, you were the Member of Parliament for Ugunja constituency. And things have changed significantly since then. And we're having conversations around then what responsibility lies on your shoulders to deliver in your docket, but at the same time to deliver for government. So thank you for being here this morning. We would like to hear your interpretation of a proverb that Dennis is going to tell you the country that it's from and what you think about it. We'll put you to work this morning.
Wow.
Okay.
Well, interpretation of a proverb.
Yes.
Wow.
Very, very simple. I mean, you're interpreting a lot of things every day in your office. You're looking at reports, you have to make your own conclusions, interpretations, have your opinion, right? So I'll go straight to it. So we are in the Republic of Senegal. You've been to Senegal?
No.
Okay. So Senegal is in West Africa. It's known for a lot of things, culture, landscapes, and it's actually proud of 7 UNESCO heritage sites.
Okay.
And this proverb is very simple. If someone doesn't tell you, you must find out yourself. If someone doesn't tell you, you must find out yourself.
If someone doesn't tell you, you must find out yourself.
Yes. How do you interpret that proverb?
It would basically mean that you need to be alert all the time. And to go an extra mile in terms of establishing the facts, and not to be over reliant on people's goodwill. Really,
You can find it out for
Sounds
yourself.
political, though.
I don't know what is not political in this world. Everything seems to revolve around politics.
In one way or another, that's for sure.
Correct.
Even the docket where you sit. So thank you for that interpretation. So the docket where you sit is a powerful one. Whether you want to look at it in terms of politics or whether you want to look at it in terms of actual power that's running through the wires to either light up or power up the nation. And let's start off with whether you were ready for the responsibility that this docket requires. Oziri?
First and foremost, it's important to say that it was indeed a great honor. It still is to have been appointed to the executive, specifically to the cabinet. You know, the cabinet of the Republic of Kenya, under the Constitution 2010, has got only 22 people. So it's a great honor to be among the 22. Okay? That is one. Two, as to whether I was prepared, the jury is out there. First and foremost, you must understand that I was in Parliament for some time.
Yes, you were.
Yeah. Having been elected 3 consecutive times. It's no mean feat, Dennis. Okay. 3 consecutive times. And not just a member of Parliament. In my second term, chaired a very, very critical committee in National Assembly, the Public Accounts Committee.
Yes.
It's the committee that examines the Auditor General's report on the expenditures by ministries, state departments, commissions, and state and independent officers. That, of course, gives you a good view of how government works, especially in terms of accountability. Okay? That committee deals with accounting officers. All accounting officers, without an exception. It invites them and interrogates them on the reports of the Auditor General. So I chaired it for 5 good years. That should tell you something about my preparedness serving the executive. But more importantly, again, in my 3rd term, which was cut short upon my appointment to the executive, I was the leader of the minority coalition in the National Assembly. Yes, leading the Azimio troops in those heady days, leading leaders who have been elected, some senior to me by terms of age, experience, some more educated than I am, okay? And so on and so forth. So in a nutshell, therefore, I don't think I could have been any better prepared than I was
Okay.
upon my appointment to the executive. Of course, when it comes to the docket that I currently hold, must appreciate that it is a prerogative of His Excellency the President to appoint and or assign cabinet secretaries to dockets. Yeah.
Were you assigned because of the position that you held in the opposition, or were you assigned because there was a true feeling that you could actually do something within this docket towards the betterment of governance and development?
You know, honestly, I can't answer that question. It's the appointing authority
Who could answer
who is
that?
the best place to say for sure why I was earmarked for this docket. Yeah.
You mean to say you've not thought about why me and why not? You say 22, so that it's a privilege to be among the 22. Why not one of your colleagues?
Now you must remember again that I and a few of my colleagues joined the executive midstream, if I may call it so. Specific in July last year, 24th. We're actually almost marking our first year anniversary. Our first anniversary on 24th. This is this week actually. Yeah, appointed on 24th of July last year, the cabinet, when there was a major, of course, reshuffle. Okay? You must also note that we came from the Azimio or ODM party. And therefore, our appointment was obviously sanctioned by the party leader of ODM, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Of course, he consulted with His Excellency the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. Yes.
You know, CS, it's interesting watching you and your choice of words because you are a very fiery debater in Parliament. And this, you know where I'm going with this. And before we had last year's protest, I watched you several times and you are a very, very strong critic of the government, including the President Ruto. But your choice of words then were not what you're using today. You've called him doctor, you're calling him His Excellency, and of course, he's the president. But having made that shift then, I watch you nowadays, and it's a contrast because you are now one of his biggest defenders. How I can't reconcile my thoughts around that. You before joining government and you after government. And I was dying to ask this question. What happens to you when you make that switch? And not just to you yourself, even your other colleagues within the ODM party. There is Mbadi, who's now also a very, very big defender. There is Joho, also another very, very big defender. But if you look at the contrast of before and after, what happens in between there?
Dennis, if you are keen enough and you look at my politics over the time when I was in Parliament specifically, and there are records, you can get them from the archives from Parliament Library, and you can play video clips of my speeches in Parliament, both in committee and on the floor of the House. You may want to say that I was a fiery debater or critic, but you will notice one thing in my speeches, that I was never personal. Yes. I have never been, even at the most critical times, at the most tense moments. I've always maintained issues. I've always stuck to issues. And this has really been helpful in terms of being able to engage with people of different political persuasions and ideologies from time to time. So it's always important to stick to issues. Even when you are criticizing an opponent or somebody on the opposite side, criticize them on the basis of issues, okay? Not personal. And my record is very clear. Even in public rallies, you can play those video clips, okay?
You were centered on the issue.
Yes, I would point out what I perceived as the failings of the administration, and which was my duty, really, in fact, as the leader of the minority, and indeed, as a member of parliament sitting on the minority side. Okay, I was playing my rightful role as a legislator, and therefore, in my view, there's no major shift. The fact is that now I sit in the executive as a member of the cabinet, bound by the principle of collective responsibility, first and foremost, but more importantly, owing allegiance to the appointing authority, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya. I had a choice. When I was approached to be appointed to the executive, I had a choice to accept or not to accept. But the moment I accepted, then I have to be bound by the first and foremost collective responsibility principle, but also out of decency and good manners and good order, I must support the president and his administration to the best of my ability, which I'm doing, by the way, you know.
And which you called punitive in your fiery statements.
Well, you see again, Dennis. That was then. If I did not do it, if I did not call it out, who would have done it? Yes, I was playing my duty.
Okay.
My other friends like to call it something else, not really something I want to say here. Yes.
So some of those issues that you raised when you were a member of parliament, leader of the minority, are some of the issues under the docket that you now are the chief accountability officer for as being a cabinet secretary, and that is, of course, the politics of it. Just like you said by your own admission at the very beginning, that there's nothing today that we deal that doesn't include or invite politics into it. The business of power and energy in Kenya today is a hot one, no pun intended, but it is. That, number one, when we look at the reach of power to every corner of the country, I believe just the other day, the president, to whom you've clearly said that you bear allegiance to as an appointing authority, said that every corner of the country will be reached with development. Under one of the development agenda is power. Give us your outlook, overview of where we are currently, in light of the fact that many today don't know what it's like to turn on a switch in their homes.
You know, and that's exactly why I think I'm here, to make Kenyans understand what we are doing. You know, I've made a conscious decision as the head of my ministry, which I've repeatedly said is very critical, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. I have made a conscious decision to divide my time between sitting in the office and being out there in the field. Dennis and Undu, I just came back from Kitui County last evening. Actually, yesterday I was in both Kitui County and Tharaka Nithi County, traversing the constituencies of Tharaka and Mwingi North, launching rural electrification projects in the villages, right inside the villages. In fact, one thing stuck out, that whenever I stopped, in those very many stops I made yesterday, there are about 5 stops in different places in those expansive areas. Whenever I stopped, one common comment was that was the first time they are seeing a cabinet secretary. That was the first time a cabinet secretary was stepping on their land. And that tells you, of course, that I was able to go to very remote places. So I have chosen to do this so that I can lead from the front in terms of extending electricity to those who need it most.
At those stops, did you also notice whether people had been powered?
The very reason why I was making those stops is because those people are not to be powered.
Yes.
Okay? Our first and foremost responsibility as a ministry is to ensure that we promote access to, of course, clean, renewable, sustainable energy services at affordable or competitive costs. We know as a country that we have got a very, very ambitious target to achieve universal access to electricity by the year 2030. That is within our vision 2030, if you get time to read it.
Yes.
Okay? We may, on paper, be hovering around 75% accessibility. I want to say so because that is theoretical. And why is it theoretical? Is that it basically depicts the mean average. But if you go out there, as they say, kwa ground between different. Why different? There are some areas in this country with access rates as low as 5% or less. Okay? Of course, there are others with about 98 or so percent access rate. So it's my duty and that of my team at the ministry to ensure that we bridge this gap, this huge gap, by making deliberate efforts to extend electricity to the countryside, to the remotest places possible. Statistics that we have indicate that in the last 2 years or so, especially upon President Ruto assuming office, we have connected additional 1,100,000 or so customers.
In how long?
About 2 years or so.
Okay.
2.5 years, thereabout.
And this is countrywide?
Countrywide.
Okay.
As we speak now, in the books of Kenya Power, there are about 10 million and something customers. About 10 million, thereabout. This tells you, of course, that if we maintain this tempo, then in the next 2 years, by the time we go according to the next elections in August 2027, inshallah, we shall be having an additional about 1 million or so. In fact, could go to 1.5 million, okay? Because you have actually accelerated the tempo.
1.5 million more?
More. Yeah, which means Kenya Power books might read about 11.5 to 12 million customers. But remember, these are customers. When you connect what we are referring to as a customer, okay? In some cases, we refer to it as a household, okay? When you talk about domestic connections, you are talking about an average of 5-6 beneficiaries. If you look at the average size of our households in this country, especially in the rural areas or peri-urban areas, okay? So 1 million customers could translate to about 6 million or so beneficiaries, benefiting directly from energy access. You will notice, Ndu, if you go out there the way I do often, they glow in the faces of school-going children. And many times they come out to receive us. Yeah. In fact, many times I try to avoid going near schools because we may disrupt learning in those schools. They come out to interact with us when we go out there to launch these programs. And when they imagine that they will be having electricity in their schools or in their homes, they don't believe it. Yes, that they are able then to compete effectively with the children who are in more advantaged locations, like Nairobi and other urban areas. Okay? You know, these kids, both in junior, or let me call it, in junior primary or junior secondary, or in all these schools, these comprehensive schools.
Yeah.
These kids sit same exams nationally, I'm sure you know. Yeah.
This is interesting because just a couple of weeks ago, in one of the papers, there's a picture of a young boy and he's seated in the field next to his home. This is in Nairobi. In a neighborhood in Nairobi. And he's using the floodlight from the nearby area
Yes.
to read. I'm
Yes.
sure you saw that picture.
Yes.
This is in Nairobi. And why?
I'm not sure it was Nairobi.
I'm not. This is in Kenya. Let's
Yes.
say Kenya. This is in Kenya, where a young boy is trying to read for these exams that you mentioned, and he's using the floodlight from a nearby street that casts the light on his books for him to read at night before he goes back to bed. It seems to be a different picture from the one that you paint.
It can't be different. It's essentially the picture I'm painting. That those kids are yearning for opportunity to access light, electricity. Okay? That the mere fact that they are able to access some street light out there. The boy was going to read under a lampshade in the street because they have got no electricity in their house.
In their home.
Yes,
Exactly.
correct. Okay? So what would happen if you gave them electricity in their house?
He wouldn't be in the street.
He won't be in the street.
But this is a current issue. And so the question is, in terms of time and implementation, where are we seeing and how fast this journey is going?
I have said that we have a target to achieve universal access to electricity by the year 2030.
2030.
Yes. And we are steadily moving there. In fact, if there is one thing that this administration has done with tremendous impact, is the expansion of rural electrification. No doubt. Go anywhere in this country, you will come to that conclusion.
Okay.
We need to actually applaud the administration of President Ruto. It has gone out of its way to extend electricity to people who are for long underserved. There are people in this country, there are regions in this country who couldn't have even imagined that in their lifetime they would access electricity.
So
This government is going out to do it in an equitable manner, and that's the defining terminology.
okay, so yes, let's go with your numbers in terms of connectivity. So this places marginalized, especially that have been off grid now, coming to the national grid. So you're talking about connectivity. Let's talk about cost. Because when you look at the costs, Kenya is among the countries that pay more to stay connected to electricity compared to other nations. Why so? I don't have the correct figures. The last time I checked, we were looking at a comparison among the African countries, and you're looking at what we get from outside the country to supplement what we are generating from within the country. And there were conversations about why then do we still talk about these high costs when we still have geothermal and we have the other renewable energy sources. So let's talk about cost. Why is power in Kenya very expensive?
Let me start by saying that, Dennis, cost is a relative term. Okay? It depends on what angle you're looking at it from.
From a consumer level.
Yes, I know. From a consumer level. And it depends, again, is which parameters you are comparing it. Okay? But I'm not running away from the fact that our power costs can come lower or should come lower. Okay? That, in my view, is work in progress. And I've said from my opening remarks that our mandate is to promote access to renewable, clean, sustainable energy services at competitive cost. We shall not have achieved our objectives. We shall not have delivered on our mandate fully if we just supplied power or electricity without looking at the cost. Okay? So we are very conscious of that fact. But let me say this. Cost is a function of many factors, chief of which, of course, is the taxes and levies. Okay? That Parliament, in its wisdom, of course, imposes from time to time. I'm saying that because I've been a parliamentarian before, and I know that these levies and taxes cannot be effected without parliamentary approval. So that is one factor. But there's another factor, again. The other factor is what I would call as commercial and technical losses. Okay? We are hovering at around 24% of these two types of losses combined. That means, in simple layman terms, Dennis, that if you generate 100 megawatts of electricity, okay? By the time it gets to the consumer, what passes through the consumer or customer meter box is 76 megawatts. In other words, 24 megawatts is lost along the way.
To what?
Through
exactly?
transmission and distribution. Okay? I'm coming to that.
Okay.
So technical losses would come from our infrastructure for transmission and distribution. The more as infrastructure for distribution and transmission is less robust, the more these technical losses. Okay? And that's why, as a ministry, indeed as a government under His Excellency the President, we have moved very fast to put emphasis on modernization of our transmission and distribution infrastructure. Yes. For a long time, there's been less than optimal investment in the maintenance and development of our infrastructure for distribution and transmission. So we are working on that front.
But yet these connections to get to 1 million, 1.5,
Yes.
is then based on this same infrastructure.
Correct. And
So is that then not counterproductive? Because if then you are still spreading these connections and you're creating all these networks to make sure that everyone then is part of this national grid based on this infrastructure, then is that...
okay, let me explain to you.
Yes.
You know, our projected increase in demand for electricity, again, because of factors of population growth, industrialization, and so on and so forth, okay, would mean two things. One, we must up our generation capacity, okay? Generation capacity. From whatever sources, geothermal, hydro, solar, wind, and now nuclear, Dennis, in Siaya. Very soon, you'll be hearing about nuclear power coming from Siaya.
Okay.
As we enhance our generation capacity to be able to cope with the increasing demand for electricity, we must, in the same vein, improve, upgrade, or otherwise modernize our transmission and distribution infrastructure. Because once you generate power from whatever source, you must evacuate it to the end user. It's of no use producing power in Sondumiriu, in Kiambere Dam, from wherever. And then you can't evacuate it. The only way to evacuate it is through transmission lines and distribution lines. Okay? So if there's a mismatch between the two, then you're not achieving the overall objective. And that's what I'm saying. The government of President Ruto has made deliberate efforts to ensure that we deal with both the matter of generation capacity enhancement and improvement on the quality and stability of our infrastructure for distribution and transmission.
So, Waziri, there are two organizations which are responsible for that. Kenya Power works on, and then helps with this power to actually reach people. REREC also, that works hand in hand with Kenya Power, does their job. They get rural electrification, the program, trying to get power to the end. But everybody seems to be stuck on one thing at one time or the other. You talk about distribution. The managing director of Kenya Power sat in that same seat and said,
yes,
and talked about this distribution issue and talked about transmission lines and how power is lost along the way.
Correct.
Because you have to use so many lines to get power,
Correct.
for example, to Muhoroni, when your substation is in a different part of the country, like Kibos, and you're moving power from one place to the other. So the question then becomes, if we lament on the same issue over and over again, when do we get to the point whereby we say, actually, you know what, this has been sorted, and we don't have to do so much to get power from one place to another? Because the problem is that to get this power to Muhoroni, you find yourself going round, am I right? Round so many channels to get power to go to this point. And so why do we use such a roundabout means in order for that to happen?
Actually, I'm happy to learn that the Kenya Power MD was here. And that is exactly what I've been saying, that you need improvement in the infrastructure for transmission and distribution. And you put it very well. You cannot move electricity such a long distance, okay, using low voltage lines, okay? You need to upgrade the lines to be high voltage. All these are capital investments that, of course, require money, but I'll come to that later. So the roles of these entities, and there's no lamentation. This basically putting it as it is. And there's no time we shall say that now we are there. No more need for further improvements. These improvements will be necessary until the end of the world, okay? Because the new demands will come with new challenges and so on and so forth. Kenya Power, of course, is the uptake of all energy,
yes,
that is produced or generated, okay? And it's the interface with the customers. It's the entity that eventually builds the customers.
Yes, distributes it. Yeah.
You, and you, okay? Kenya Power. It also, of course, runs and maintains certain distribution lines, okay? REREC is basically our social responsibility arm of this sector. REREC basically does what I went to do yesterday in
Kitui.
In Kitui and Tharaka Nithi, extending power to places that sometimes would have been commercially unviable to do so. Okay? So we ride on the REREC to do that, because Kenya Power would not do it, because Kenya Power is a commercial entity. Okay? It's profit motivated. Okay? Because it has got a duty to its shareholders. Yes. It could be you or I. Okay? Now, KETRACO's role is purely to deal with the transmission lines, construction and maintenance. Now, those high voltage lines.
Yes.
Okay? It's a very, very clear distribution of roles. What happened some time back is the unbundling of these roles within the sector. And it has worked very well, because everybody now focuses on their role. But I have to say something, Dennis. So apart from the technical losses, which we are now working towards reducing, all these improvements we are putting in place in terms of enhancing our infrastructure capacity will go a long way in reducing the technical losses.
How long will it take, you think?
Well, we have got a master plan. Yes, as I said earlier on, we have got a master plan actually for KETRACO Kenyan Power and REREC. Yes, and they're in phases. There's short, medium, and long-term plans. Okay, as I've said, this will be continuous forever. But we are going to be able to get some optimal level. Okay, in our view, in the next 3 to 4 years, optimal level. Okay, meaning that if we can reduce the technical and commercial losses from the current 24% to, say, 10%, then we would have actually made very, very remarkable progress. But I need to say something. Apart from these technical and commercial losses, the commercial losses sometimes come about as a result of what has become to be referred to as illegal connections. I know it's a very unpopular terminology, illegal connections. This is very rampant, especially in built-up neighborhoods.
Yes.
Okay, I'm choosing my words very, very carefully. Okay, in neighborhoods with high population intensity, and we have had the challenge controlling this menace because of issues to do with security and so on and so forth. But we are coming up with a solution. Yes, what we are calling bulk metering. In those neighborhoods, in those estates, where ordinarily it will be difficult for Kenya Power personnel to access every household, okay? We are coming up with a strategy to do what we call bulk metering, whereas the populations agree on one person or entity to be the point of contact with Kenya Power. Therefore, Kenya Power builds that person or entity, and then that entity supplies power to the household and then collects revenues. So it has worked in many other countries and something we are very, very focused on implementing. It will go a long way in, first and foremost, ensuring uninterrupted supply of electricity to those areas by reducing matters of disconnections here and there, but more importantly, creating an environment of safety, because these illegal connections are very unsafe. Okay? Yes, very, very unsafe. Many times we have got fire incidents happening as a result of illegal connections. Okay? But ultimately, of course, it will enable Kenya Power to be able to recoup its investments by way of billing. Yes.
I know we want to go into also petroleum conversation because it's necessary for us to do. But just looking at still, when we look at the provision of power, that independent power producers have been in the center of the storm when it comes to just how much power is produced for the country to use, as well as the contracts. I believe the number of years that we're looking at now is 25. That no matter what you use, or no matter what is provided, even if it's not used. Remember, we talked about the issue of transmission lines either not being maintained or new ones not being created. But Kenya puts itself in a position whereby it signed contracts with IPPs to provide power, and whether or not you use it, you have to pay for it. And unfortunately, what this does is that it gets to the end user whose power bills are higher, who, when something needs to be restored, it takes time to be able to do that. When would they get out of these contracts with IPPs and see that the power producers in the country can actually produce what they're supposed to, and that that the uptake then translates to what you spend, as opposed to having to spend more for power that you've not utilized?
From where I sit, first and foremost, I don't think IPPs is a bad idea. Because strategically, you need to diversify the sources of power to the national grid for strategic reasons. Yes, over-reliance on one source could be catastrophic. For instance, if you said, let's rely on geothermal or hydro,
Can't do it.
it can't work. It's not strategic at all. Okay, without going into details. But again, what you are referring to with regard to the IPPs is a legacy problem. Yeah, it's a legacy problem that we are dealing with. We have had lessons from these old IPPs. We have learned our lessons, and going forward, and these IPPs are not all of them are fixed terms. They are going to expire. Their terms are going to expire as we move along. Okay. they expire as we move along. We have agreed, in fact, even with Parliament, the Energy Committee of both National Assembly and Senate, that we are going to review our approach to entering into new PPAs. You know, for IPPs to be able to supply power to the national grid, they must sign PPAs. I'm sure you understand what PPAs mean, Denise. PPAs are the power purchase agreements. Okay? The IPPs are the independent power producers. So IPPs cannot operate without PPAs. Now, PPAs are signed between the IPPs and Kenya Power. We are looking at that space, that landscape, so that with the benefit of the learnings we have attained in the past, going forward, we enter into PPAs that are more flexible, okay? More flexible and more sensitive to public needs. And there are so many arguments, by the way. If you open that debate here, it won't even end. If you brought the IPPs here, one of them.
I actually want to talk about one, because this particular
don't
one,
please.
this particular Waziri, this particular one,
Yes.
then brought out the issue of secrecy when it comes to these deals, the procurement, and the secrecy in procurement concern Kenyans, because in the contracts that are being awarded, one, without either open tendering, number two, the red flags around transparency and value for money, especially for consumers. And in this case, I'm actually referring directly to the Adani Kenya Power Transmission deal. The scope and the value that then Kenyans are going to get, and became a huge storm. Why are they done in secrecy?
You know, the thing is now we are mixing issues deliberately, so I believe, you know.
I want us to have that conversation.
I want to just deal with the issue of transmission, the issue of generation.
Yes.
Where the IPPs
We'll talk
are.
about transmission later.
Transmission later,
Okay.
slightly later.
Okay.
So these IPPs, those have the arguments. That's my point. That you see the kind of investment they put in place, okay, are such that if you don't take their power, then they run at a loss, you know. And therefore, there is that element of take or pay, okay? That component. There's a way they argue, okay? Which sometimes makes sense. But again, we have said that we need to interrogate this. That's what we are doing. But going forward, we need to be very sensitive to the public needs. And the balance, strike a very delicate balance between the investors' prospects and public needs.
But it should be the public need that is front and center in this, isn't it? Because from the very beginning of this conversation, we started out when we say we're going to power up Kenya, and that is the role of government, that to make sure that those needs are met. But it's not just having the power and the lights on, but it's actually at a cost that is affordable to be met by Kenyans. So even when we talk about these IPPs and PPAs, Waziri, the benefit of the consumer, how far is that considered in terms of costs?
Exactly. And I've said that we must strike a delicate balance between serving public need and also ensuring that these IPPs remain in business. Because if they don't remain in business, it means they can't generate the power to supply to the national grid.
Which the country needs.
Yes. So that's a delicate balance, which the ministry can do or should or is doing. Okay? Because otherwise, left to their own devices, we'll have no order. Okay? That's why we have to come in to protect public interest as well as ensure that these IPPs remain in business. Because we need them to be in business for us to be guaranteed of steady supply of power. Adani was a different issue because Adani was coming in to help us in constructing transmission lines, some 4 or so transmission lines and substations. Okay? Under PPA, PPP, under PPP, public-private partnership arrangement. You know, in this country, we have got a law governing PPPs. Many people don't understand this. There is a PPP Act of Parliament, which was passed by the National Assembly in the year 2021. That is the piece of legislation that guides and or governs all matters PPPs. And that law gives a wide range of options or approaches for conceiving and implementing PPPs. So Adani was coming in through one of those avenues as provided by the law. Okay? Okay? What we call the privately initiated proposal. And we have had very many other entities, corporates, companies, organizations, presenting us with privately initiated proposals of various kinds, covering various infrastructure projects. It's only unfortunate that as we speak, none is yet to see the light of the day insofar as the transmission line development is concerned. But that does not mean that we are going to abandon PPPs anytime soon. In my view, in fact, it is the position of the ministry that PPPs is the way to go.
It is the way to go, but see, yes, the issue around the issue with PPPs is the secrecy that shrouds some of these deals, and sometimes these things are not very much in the open. For example, the Adani one was a 30-year contract. When you look at procurement concerns in this case, was there an open bidding, or did then this deal bypass the competitive bidding? Was it single-sourced? And so there are legal implications to this. Well, there was public backlash around it because people wanted to know, what are we getting ourselves into? Is the cost of power? Because the end consumer, all they care about is how much am I going to pay them per unit and for how long? So when we get then into these deals that are not very much then in the open, it leaves people to question a lot.
You know, and that's exactly what I said from the beginning, that not many Kenyans may understand what legal framework governs these PPPs. That's a starting point. And perhaps, therefore, maybe we could have done better communication for Kenyans to walk along with us, along the journey. Okay? Because there is a tendency in this country, what Americans would refer to as McCarthyism, you know. You give a dog a bad name, and then you hang it. This has a potential of killing potentially very, very useful and beneficial projects, if you aren't careful. If you aren't careful. Because the name Adani had been bastardized. So anything to do with Adani is bad.
Because of the secrecy, CS. And I think that's what Dennis is saying here.
Yes.
Because that it came out and the way in which it was communicated, which by your own admission may have had a flaw, is that they looked as though there was something to hide and that there was someone who was benefiting from this and not to the benefit of Kenyans. You must admit.
And the perception of secrecy is emanating partly out of lack of understanding of the legal framework that is in place.
Now, is it lack of understanding of these legal frameworks you're saying from Kenyans and consumers, or is it then lack of information and how it was communicated? Because you earlier said that.
And I've said that. Yes.
There's an issue of communication.
It's a combination of factors. Yes.
So, do you still believe the Adani deal was a good deal, only that it was communicated poorly?
I don't want to make that blanket judgment that it was communicated poorly. I'm saying we from the benefit of hindsight.
Okay.
With the benefit of hindsight, perhaps we would have communicated better from the outset. Okay? That is one. Okay? But two, which is equally important, is that the manner of procurement of the Adani project, if I may call it so, was perfectly legal because it's provided for under the PPP Act of 2021. Okay? So that's an area perhaps we need to engage in the public more. But since then, I'm also happy to report.
Or completely, not even more. CS.
Since then, Since then, I'm happy to report that we have also progressed some other PPP project in the transmission space that is to be undertaken by a consortium of Africa 50. Okay? Okay? It's the tail end of implementation in terms of contract signing. Africa 50 is going to do as some 2 lines, Lesos, Lesuk, and Kibos, Kakamega, Musaga lines. Okay? Similarly, in the same manner that Adani would have done those other 4 lines and the substations. Okay? But with this one, I'm sure you have noted that we have had much more robust public engagement, going by the learnings we had from the Adani debacle. Okay? And we are hopeful that this is going to be the first PPP of its kind. Not only in Kenya, I think in the entire Africa. Okay? In the energy transmission space. So it is continuous learning. But the point is that Kenyans must come to understand that as things are, we must embrace PPP. But of course, I'm also agreeing with you that the PPPs must be managed properly.
And in a transparent manner.
And in a transparent manner. And that is what the government is set out to do. In a transparent manner that satisfies the needs and anxieties of the common mwananchi.
I know we're going to have maybe a few more minutes in this conversation, but it's necessary for us to talk about petroleum because time does fly when you're having fun, isn't it, CS? But we saw in the last month that IPRA, another organization that works under the auspices that then brings in the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, is that they told us that fuel prices then are going to go up. Kerosene, diesel, petrol went up by 7, 8, 9 shillings respectively. And we also know that by the time we are seeing this increase, it's not the fuel that has come in. This is what has come in previously and then makes a reflection in that current month. And I can see you have your IPRA documentation there. But here we are looking at a case where global prices affect what happens in the country. However, the landed cost of fuel compared to the fuel that comes at your pump is increased significantly because of local taxes. No matter what happens on the global scale, the fuel that you then take your car to the petrol station or that you buy your kerosene or whatever it is that you do has been affected significantly by taxes in country. Why are they so high?
A good question, but perhaps to a wrong person. Because as I've said before, at the beginning of our debate here this morning, taxes and levies of whatever kind are only imposed or implemented with parliamentary approval.
But what then would be counterintuitive, would be
one.
counterproductive to what the ministry wants to do.
That is one. 2, I have looked at the price movements of petroleum products, specifically for petrol, diesel, and kerosene, from July last year to now July this year. Okay? What might interest you, by the way, very quickly, is that in July last year, when I took over this ministry, the price of petrol was 188.84 per litre in Nairobi. The latest prices that have been announced make the price of petrol to be 186.3 per litre in Nairobi. 188.84, now 186.3. Diesel, very quickly, was 171.6 in July last year. It is now 171.59, more or less no change. Yes. Kerosene was 161.75 per litre in July last year. It is now 156.13 per litre. Now, that's not the point. The point is that these new prices are as a result of what you are referring to as a steep hike. Okay? Which is indeed true. The hike was steep. Okay? But you must understand again that from last year, July to now, along the way, there have been steady price decreases. Steady. if I had time, I would just take you through the statistics. For all these three types of petroleum products, steady price decreases. It only went up this month, but even as it went up steeply, to borrow your word, Sundu,
Yes.
they haven't reached the level they were in July last year. That's a very interesting observation. Okay? And I appreciate this. As consumers, you are more sensitive to price increase, don't you?
Of course.
Yes. Any price decrease doesn't really interest you.
Especially knowing that the price of fuel affects everything else that you're going to do.
Correct. But I just want us to understand that the government has never slept on the job. We are alive to our responsibility of ensuring that we provide affordable or more competitive prices for fuel. Now, you have said that part of the contribution to these prices is the taxes and levies.
A major part.
You are right. You are right.
Yeah.
But there are also other components, other factors. Of course, one is landed cost. Okay. One is the landed cost, which, of course, government has no control over. There is the matter of margins, which go to the players in the value chain. There's the matter of storage and distribution costs, where we play a very key role because our storage and distribution agency is Kenya Pipeline Company, which is owned 100% by the government of Kenya. And we have used that space to actually really mitigate these costs by creating more and more efficiencies in the distribution and storage sector. We have been able to manage these costs in a very big way, and the public might not know. Okay? So therefore, what am I saying? What I'm saying is that whereas there are other factors, there are factors that we may not control, especially the matter of the global factors that determine the landed cost. Okay? And we take cue from the S&P Global Plat as the benchmark, yes, for these prices. We are not lost on the fact that we can still do more, and we are doing that more in terms of addressing these other factors that could be under our control. For instance, this issue of the road maintenance fuel levy is the most famous one. Okay? That people keep talking about and politicians keep misrepresenting. That road maintenance levy is a levy that, even though we collect as a sector, is administered by our sister Ministry of Roads and Transport. Okay? But it does a very vital role, which I don't want to really belabor. I don't want to belabor. Okay? And that's just one example of the levies. So when you say, for instance, therefore, that our levies and taxes are too much, let's reduce them. Are we offering an alternative to addressing the issues that these levies are addressing?
Are these levies for
Yes.
revenue collection? Because there
Yes.
was an argument here. Why slap 16% VAT? What value are we adding on top of the landing cost? And when it lands, there's nothing you're doing.
You're not doing
It
anything
lands
to
as
it.
it is. It's transported as it is. We're not doing anything. So the VAT, 16%, is from government. So there is what then Parliament will approve, but why then add these other extra taxes and levies when you can do away with them?
Dennis, I agree with you. This is a debate that is very healthy, very, very healthy indeed. And if we approach it from an open mind, we could actually get somewhere. Okay? Because the matter of taxes and levies is a matter of determining what taxes, what services do you need to offer to the people.
Because we have excess
Yes.
duty, we have petroleum development levy, PDL, we have petroleum regulatory levy, we have railway development
There are
levy,
many,
we have merchant shipping levy, we have road maintenance levy. I
All
can
on
go
this
on and
fuel.
on.
You can go on, yes. But I'm telling you, Dennis, that this is a debate that is very healthy. Okay? And if we just approached it in the manner I've suggested, with open minds, okay, we could get somewhere. there could be a meeting of minds. Okay? Because the government, as usual, must do a balancing act. Okay? And people keep on asking many times, why is it that petrol is free in Kenya is more expensive than Rwanda or Tanzania or Uganda? All those are independent jurisdictions with their needs
And their tax regimes.
and their tax regimes and their approaches to dealing with their needs.
But ours is punitive.
Okay? Again, punitive is a relative term.
So why do you use
Dennis.
CS when you're in parliament?
Dennis.
You say the tax regime in this country is very punitive to Kenyans. When you're in parliament, now you're CS, do you still believe this is still punitive?
No, what I believe in is that there's always room for improvement.
When do we improve?
There's always room for improvement, and this is why we have a continuous conversation. From here, by the way, I'm going to Parliament.
Okay.
Yes. From here, I'm heading straight to the National Assembly's Committee on Energy to address same issues. That tells you, of course, that entities or institutions that are responsible are not sleeping.
Okay.
Yes, they're
They're
working
doing
on these
something.
issues. Yeah, they're doing something. So I don't think we should lose hope.
Okay.
And it's
Yeah.
at that point maybe we then release you to go to Parliament. But
Thank you
some
very
of these
much.
issues definitely necessary that we looked into. Thank you for being here this morning. Opiyo Wandayi is the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum. We'll be looking at some of these issues necessary for us to look into. We invite you again to come and give us, an outlook in terms of how things have changed in a very short period. And so thank you for coming here and honoring our invitation this morning. It is 11 minutes past 9 o'clock. Good morning. Conversations continue after this.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.